The decision to trade away a veteran mentor for a younger, high-upside gamble has sent shockwaves through our quarterback room. So, remember to keep pounding. Whether you are tuning in from Charlotte, Raleigh, or anywhere across the country, your voice matters. So shout out your city in the comments below. This controversial shift in our roster strategy is the talk of the league in 2026, and we are breaking down why GM Dan Morgan made this bold move. Is it a masterstroke of roster management or a massive lapse in judgment? Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to stay ahead of all our Panthers updates as we explore the truth behind the Kenny Pickett acquisition today. The decision to bring in Kenny Pickett while moving on from Andy Dalton stands as one of the most debated maneuvers by general manager Dan Morgan this offseason. Bryce Young is undeniably our franchise cornerstone, and the success of the Carolina Panthers in 2026 relies almost entirely on his growth and performance under center. For seasons, Andy Dalton served as the steady hand, the veteran voice in the room who provided a sense of security for our young quarterback. However, the organization clearly felt that the status quo was no longer enough to push this team toward its ultimate potential. When we look at the transition from Dalton to Pickett, we are looking at a fundamental shift in the backup quarterback philosophy. The coaching staff and the front office were seeking a different profile, someone with the physical athleticism to mirror the modern demands of our offensive scheme. Yet, the acquisition of Kenny Pickett has raised eyebrows across the national media landscape. Pickett arrives in Carolina with a reputation for having bounced around the league, navigating 4 different organizations in just 5 short seasons. This kind of movement usually signals a player who has yet to find his footing, which leads us to the heart of the debate. Was the experience and stability of Andy Dalton worth more than the theoretical upside of a former first-round pick who has struggled to find consistency? Dan Morgan took a calculated risk, betting that the environment in Carolina is exactly what Pickett needs to finally unlock his potential, or, at the very least, provide a more dynamic presence if the worst-case scenario occurs. Fans are understandably torn, because while we all want Bryce Young to flourish, the insurance policy in the quarterback room needs to be reliable. By moving on from the veteran presence that had been established, the team is signaling that they are prioritizing athleticism and developmental potential over a safe, steady hand. This is the hallmark of a front office that refuses to settle for mediocrity, even if the move itself carries a significant amount of uncertainty. It is a bold move, but in the NFL, standing still is often the same thing as moving backward, and the Panthers have made it clear they are not interested in standing still as we march through the 2026 season. When we dive into the specific criticisms leveled at the move, we cannot ignore the perspective of insiders like ESPN's Bill Barnwell, who has gone on record calling this the worst offseason move for our organization. It is a harsh assessment, especially considering the overall upgrades we have seen across the roster. Barnwell's argument hinges on the data, citing that Pickett's total QBR over the last 4 years puts him in the lower tier of starters and backups alike. When you look at the raw statistics, the EPA per dropback, and the overall efficiency metrics, it is easy to see why critics are sounding the alarm. However, statistics in a vacuum often fail to capture the context of the situations these players were in. Critics argue that we are paying a premium for a player who has already proven he can struggle in pressure situations. Yet, we have to ask ourselves what the alternative really was. If the coaching staff determined that Andy Dalton no longer possessed the necessary juice to effectively run the offense in a pinch, then keeping him simply for the sake of familiarity would have been a disservice to the entire team. The move to bring in Pickett isn't just about the numbers he has produced in the past. It is about the gamble that a change of scenery and our specific offensive environment might lead to a different outcome. Furthermore, the narrative that we paid a massive premium is being heavily debated. A $4 million salary for a backup quarterback in today's NFL economy is essentially the market rate for a player with starting experience. When you compare his compensation to other backups in the league, players like Joe Milton, Quinn Ewers, or even Spencer Rattler, Pickett's salary is right in line with the standard. If he provides even a baseline level of competent play, the investment is essentially a wash. The concern from the media that we are overpaying for a project overlooks the fact that the entire quarterback market has inflated. We aren't just paying for stats. We are paying for a specific type of athlete to occupy a vital depth position. While Barnwell points to the past performance as a red flag, our front office is looking at the physical traits that made Pickett a high draft pick in the first place, betting that the right coaching can extract that talent in a way previous teams failed to do. To understand why this change was necessary, we have to look closely at what we saw on the field from Andy Dalton. Those who were watching closely during his lone start last season saw a player who simply struggled to keep up with the pace of the game. Professional football is an unforgiving sport, and once a veteran's arm strength or mobility begins to decline, that downward trend is rarely reversed. The Panthers had front-row seats to that decline, and it became evident that Dalton was no longer a viable contingency plan. Some might say that a mentor is a mentor regardless of their physical abilities, but a backup quarterback needs to be able to execute the game plan if the starter goes down. If Bryce Young were to miss time, the team cannot afford to put a player on the field who physically cannot make the necessary throws or escape a collapsing pocket. This is why the trade was not a mistake. It was a necessary evolution. We might miss the leadership and the veteran presence that Dalton brought to the locker room, but we cannot win games based on leadership alone. We need production, and by bringing in Pickett, we are betting on a higher floor for the athleticism required to sustain our offensive identity. The comparisons to other backups around the league show that Pickett is actually in good company. If you look at the financial landscape of the NFL in 2026, the cost of having a backup who has been a starter is significant. Whether you look at players like Dillon Gabriel or other high-profile backups, the price for that experience is standard. Calling this the worst move of the offseason feels like a hyperbolic take that ignores the reality of managing a professional roster. A truly bad move would be clinging to a veteran who can no longer perform, potentially costing the team wins in a critical season. By pivoting to Pickett, the Panthers have opted for a high-variance, high-reward strategy that aligns with a team looking to build for the future, rather than clinging to the ghosts of the past. It is a cold, calculated move, but it is one that shows our front office is willing to make tough decisions to maximize the talent ceiling of the entire roster. The emotional impact of losing a veteran leader like Dalton is real, but the focus must remain on the long-term health of the organization. As we continue to keep pounding, the expectation is that every move made by this front office is geared toward giving Bryce Young the best possible supporting cast. While the media loves to scrutinize the contract numbers and the historical stats of Kenny Pickett, the internal belief is that we have secured a player who can learn, adapt, and ultimately provide the support we need. It is important for us as fans to look beyond the surface-level critiques and understand the internal evaluation that prompted this trade. We aren't asking Pickett to be the next superstar. We are asking him to be a bridge, a learner, and a reliable athlete who fits the vision of our coaching staff. If we judge this move solely on the past 4 years, we miss the point of why Dan Morgan and his team were so aggressive in pursuing this acquisition. They saw a need for a specific athletic profile, and they went out and got it, regardless of the noise from external analysts. This season is about growth, consistency, and proving that we are building something meaningful in Carolina. By refusing to settle for a backup who had reached his ceiling, we are showing a commitment to excellence that should excite every true fan. We are betting on our environment to get the best out of our players, and that includes the depth positions that so often get overlooked until the moment they are needed most. Ultimately, the success of the 2026 Carolina Panthers will be defined by the play of Bryce Young, but the depth chart behind him is now undeniably more athletic and better suited to our long-term goals. We have traded the comfortable familiarity of the past for the high-octane potential of the present, and that is a shift we should all be keeping an eye on as the weeks progress. We want to hear from you, our incredible, loyal fans. Do you believe that Kenny Pickett has what it takes to thrive in our system, or do you think the team made a mistake by moving on from the veteran experience of Andy Dalton? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and let's get the discussion going. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your fellow fans, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on our path to greatness. We are a team built on resilience and the relentless spirit to keep pounding until we reach the top. See you in the next one.